Hello and welcome again. I want to address some of the comments that have been made on recent video that I've published. I'll put a link in the description to the original video. The original video presents this observation and analyzes this observation. And I demonstrate that this observation is impossible if the Earth is flat. And therefore, because the observation can be made, I've made it and anybody else can make it, then the Earth cannot be flat. Now, it's not unique as an observation in demonstrating this. There are many observations that do the same thing. But this observation does it in a way that is very simple to understand, if you bother to take the time to understand it. My camera here is at 210 meters above sea level. It's on a hill which is a height of 221 meters at the summit, and I am a distance down from the summit so that I am 210 meters above sea level, or the camera height is. This bridge tower in the distance is also at 210 meters above sea level. It's the known height of that tower. And I was very careful to select these two things. I wanted a clear line of sight to that tower, and I wanted the camera to be exactly 210 meters above sea level. The reason is that we now have a straight line between the tower, an imaginary line, but a straight line, a line of sight, if you will, between the top of the tower and the camera. And that line of sight, if the Earth is flat, runs parallel to the surface of the Earth and is 210 meters above the Earth. And that line of sight continues on into the distance and remains at 210 meters above the surface of the Earth as far as you can go into the distance. If the Earth is flat, that's what we're observing here. What that means is, if you put a line across the screen, then anything below that line must be less than 210 meters tall if the Earth is flat. If you can see something below that line that is known to be taller or higher above the surface than 210 meters, then the Earth cannot be flat. It's extraordinarily simple, and you only need to have a very, very basic grasp of geometry to realize that this is true. Now, what do we see? Well, below the line, just below the line, we see the South Tower and the North Tower. This is reassuring because we know that they are both 8 meters shorter than the Central Tower. But we also see Kennock Hill, well below the line. Kennock Hill is 413 meters above sea level at the top. As I said, if the Earth is flat, it is impossible for something that is taller or more than 210 meters above the plane, above sea level, for it to be below that line. It's impossible for something taller to be below that line if the Earth is flat. So just looking at Kennock Hill, we have absolute proof, absolute demonstration that the Earth cannot be flat. These other hills that you see in the background here, some of them are also in excess of 400 meters tall. Others are 350 meters and so on, but all of them are greater than 210 meters. And yet we see them below the line. If they're below the line, the Earth cannot be flat. It's as simple as that. Now, a lot of flat earthers in my comment section have really struggled to grasp this simple idea. So I want to talk a little bit about angular size and perspective, just to try and educate them a little bit more. I've placed a drawing of a plastic duck on some blue colour to represent water. We have an eye here looking along the surface of the water at the duck. The angular size of the duck is represented by these two lines. The angle between these two lines is the angular size of the duck. And it's quite a large angle. The duck will occupy quite a large portion of the field of view of the person looking. If we move the duck across the screen, it remains in the field of view. It doesn't go below the surface, it doesn't go above the surface, it remains on the surface. Its angular size reduces considerably. The angle between these two lines is much smaller than the angle between the two lines when the duck was closer. So it appears smaller in our field of view, but it does not go below the surface. Now, if we look at the diagram of my observation, the vertical scale and horizontal scales are different to each other, but this is drawn to scale. We have a 200 meter plus hill. At 210 meters, we have our camera, and it's looking across to the bridge tower, 46.5 kilometers away, 210 meters high. This gives us a line of sight that is parallel to the surface of the Earth, exactly 210 meters above the surface, all the way to the distance. In the distance, at over 90 kilometers, there are hills that extend up to above 500 meters in elevation. If the Earth was flat, then the top of this tower in our field of view would appear to be at a point 210 meters up the hillside. It cannot appear to be above the top of a hillside, even a 413 meter hill. It cannot appear above that. It must appear down here if the Earth is flat. Now, thinking back to the previous slide and our duck on the surface of the water, imagine the space between the camera, the hill with the camera, and the hills in the distance to be filled with water. Now imagine our duck. I drew this freehand, so it's not perfectly filled in on the right-hand side here, but you get the idea. Imagine our duck, and we're looking at that duck, and the duck moving away towards the hills in the distance. We would still be able to see that duck if it was large enough, and it would remain at 210 meters. When it got to the hillside and sat on dry land at the hillside, it would be 210 meters up the hillside. It cannot be floating in the air above the hillside. Hopefully that explains why the particular observation that I made and show here is impossible if the Earth is flat. Perspective does not explain this away. And anyone attempting to simply say perspective, things get smaller in the distance, you're being stupid, doesn't understand how or why this was set up the way it was, or why I went to the location that I went to, and doesn't understand how perspective works. So if you've got this far in this video, if you've watched through this and you're still confused, then I will be going live later today, and please come on and either in the chat sections, or if you want a link to actually join me live, I will be providing a way for you to get that link. Come on and let's discuss. This observation disproves the flat Earth hypothesis. It provides evidence that the Earth is curved or spherical. It doesn't prove that the Earth is spherical by itself, but it does provide some additional evidence to that effect. But what it does do is prove that the Earth cannot be flat. Hopefully I'll see some of you later on. Thank you for watching.